Your hustle got to be strong in this industry, as in any other industry.
Good afternoon. All right, guys, so I'm going to answer a few of the questions that I've gotten that I feel like are asked repeatedly. All right, the first one is, he asks, I'm wondering how much does a driver make, or how much do they get paid by mile or percentage by load? Now, a couple of different answers to this. For one, depends on whether you're an owner-operator or whether you're driving for a fleet owner. If you're driving somebody else's van, whether it be a company van or a fleet owner, normally there's going to be a 60-40 split, to where whoever gets the 60 usually pays for gas. The 40, as I said, just depends. If the owner gets the 60 and the driver's just getting 40, then the owner pays for gas, tolls, and pretty much everything else, and the driver's just going to get the 40%, and that just goes into their pocket. Some fleet owners and companies pay a per mile rate. That can range. I've heard it as low as 25 cents per mile, and the highest I've heard it has been 40 cents per mile. So that's another way you can go with it. Now flip the 60-40. If the driver's getting 60, the owner's getting 40, then usually the driver's paying for gas, and then the owner is paying for the tolls and any other kind of repairs or whatnot, normally. Now, if you're talking about the van, if you're an owner-operator, leased on with the carrier, let's just go that option first. You're with the carrier. That's gonna depend on what carrier you go with. Some carriers are paying 80 cents. Some are paying 75 cents. Some are paying 70 cents. Some are paying 95 cents. Some are paying a percentage, which is some are 75%. Some are 85%. So that is also going to range. And as an owner-operator, when you're looking around at these carriers, or whether you're going to decide to go independent or go through some brokers, go through different carriers that allow the multi-carriers, whatever your plan is going to be, just be sure to do your due diligence and talk with the drivers with those. Try to get as much advice as you can. Don't be in such a hurry to just get out there on the road, because again, they all pay different. The rate per mile will vary. The amount of miles you're going to get at each place will vary. A few of them that pay percentages are going to pay a different percentage. So talk with the drivers. You know, the ones that sound good to you, talk to the drivers. See what they're talking about. Get into the groups, check all that out. But the range of the rate per mile can be from 70 on up to, you know, upwards of 95 to $1. I haven't heard of a carrier that's offering $1 per mile, but that's not to say there aren't any out there that don't do it. I know there's some small carriers that will get drivers runs at that rate. And again, I guess on a side note, don't get too caught up in rate per mile. If you only get 1,000 miles and you're averaging 90 cents to $1, and you can go over to this carrier at 75 or 80 cents and they're going to get you 4,000, 3,000 miles, you know, the money's going to be different at the end of the week. You got to decide on whether or not you're looking for a good rate per mile and profit margin, or are you worried about how much ends up in your pocket at the end of the week? Me personally, I want the money, so that's why I've always ran harder. That's why I run as many miles as I can. That's why I do what I do. I've dabbled with the short runs, good rates, larger profit margin, but at the end of the week, unfortunately, there's not as much money in my pocket at the end of the week when that happens. Yes, you're working a lot less, all that good stuff. So that's what it takes. Like, you gonna work hard and make money, or are you out here to just relax and just claim you got a job and make a few bucks and sit on your stance of, oh, I get a good rate per mile. So you got to decide. There's too many people out there that want to focus on rate per mile, and that's just a bunch of horse shit. And I'll get into that at another time. All right. So the next person asks, can a driver drop off a load earlier than the set time? What happens if the driver is earlier or later than drop-off time? As far as earlier, if your dispatch tells you that it's okay, or there's nothing in the notes that's saying, hey, this is an appointment time. Like, we cannot go early. That's usually what they'll tell you. Other than that, the times you're given are more what I call a protect time. It's basically a guide that you know that you can't go past this time, or else there's going to start being consequences as far as, which kind of goes into your other part of your question. Pay could be docked. The carrier can be, penalized for it. I believe with Active Arrow / Roadrunner / Ascent, whatever they're called now, if you're on their load boards and you mess up, like a unexcused service failure, to where basically you're just late and there's no rhyme or reason why you're late. You just show up late for the F sake of showing up late. From what I understand, they dock you points and can suspend you from the account, from the load board. That's what I've heard. I'm not 100%. I've never been on that board myself, so I don't know 100%. But as far as early, just so we can be clear on this, arriving early, unless you're told that it's an absolute firm protect time, like appointment time, you don't want to go early. And if you try and go early after you've been told not to, there's probably a reason why it's set that way. So if you go try and get off earlier, there's a chance that person is going to bitch to the customer, and then that customer is going to get on down the line and is going to get back to your dispatch, and your dispatch is going to be pissed off at you. So you don't want that friction. Now, I've never heard of any kind of monetary penalty or anything of any significance other than a good ass chewing for showing up early to an appointment time. But you don't want to do that, obviously. Because that place you're delivering to, they could get pissed off enough and be like, hey, we don't want XYZ logistics here anymore. Don't send their trucks here no more. So that's what could happen. As far as delivering late, as long as you're in communication with dispatch, and dispatch can be in communication with that broker or customer and let them know what's going on. Say you have a flat tire, you have a breakdown, traffic is bad, roads are closed, whatever it may be. As long as you're communicating and you're late, it's not an issue. Now, if you accepted a load and it's supposed to be done in a certain time, and you didn't do it because you decided you want to go stop off for a nice leisurely dinner and stroll through the mall and shit, yeah, there's going to be problems. You're probably going to get penalized for it. To be honest, I've never heard of anybody personally being docked pay. I have heard of carriers basically not even asking for the pay for that load just to make up for it, just so there isn't any residual effects. Because the same thing with being late, as I said with an appointment time, that carrier or that company can be like, hey, we don't want them here again. They can't get here, we don't want them no more. So that can affect more than just you. So that's how it plays out on being early or being late. All right, next question. They're asking, want to know about doing a video on paperwork needed for picking up items to deliver and how to find the people responsible for shipping paperwork. I'm not quite sure what they're meaning by that, but I'm going to give my best effort at trying to answer it somewhat. The paperwork needed for picking up items is a BOL, bill of lading. What you're more or less wanting when you pick up the freight, whatever it is, you want something showing what the freight is, where the address and place that it was picked up, name of the business it was picked up, the name of the business and the address it's being delivered to. You're wanting a signature on there from the shipper, a signature of your own, and then when you deliver it, a signature of the consignee at the other end where you drop the shipment off at. As far as who's responsible for shipping paperwork, I'm not sure if you're meaning like when you show up to a place, it's usually the shipping clerk or shipping supervisor. I mean, it's obviously going to be somebody in the shipping department that's going to be responsible for that paperwork. If you're meaning further up the food chain, like how do you get those loads, that's a whole nother video in itself as far as different options as far as, ways to get out here on the road. So not sure if that answered that. If not, leave another question in the comments and I'll do my best to give you a better answer. Next question. did I have any obstacles as far as finding loads with my passenger van instead of, let's say, a cargo or a Sprinter van? Well, when I first came out, the low-top cargo van slash, passenger van that I just took the seats out of, which is the same as the cargo, basically, it just has windows. That was the majority of the vehicles being used out here. The Sprinter, the Mercedes or Freightliner Sprinter, was the only tall and long van in the game besides the cargo van. So when I first started, no, it wasn't very difficult because pretty much everybody was shipping it that way. Now that things have turned over to where the cargo van is the minority and large vans are the majority, I don't want to say it's extremely difficult. I don't think it's that hard to find loads. It's just that in certain areas, you're going to wish you had that extra ability to get taller and longer stuff. So, as a whole, like right now, I still have my passenger van that I use for getting freight, and it's not that difficult. You're just not gonna get, like I said, when you get in, say, in Alabama or southern Georgia, just in those places where there's not a ton of freight, you're not going to have as many opportunities. Now, when you're in the regular freight lanes, as far as the Midwest, like, doesn't really matter because there's just so many loads being popped up on the load board that you're going to eventually get one for your cargo van. So hopefully that answered that question. All right, next question kind of ties in with a couple of the other questions. What are the rates these days? The rates, again, they vary so much. Now, if you're talking from the van side, just as far as what gets paid to the van, that rate is going to vary from, as I said, the lowest that I've heard that anybody's advertising is 70 cents. The highest that I've heard is 95 cents. And then aside from that, there's a couple places that do a percentage. I think 75% and maybe 85%. So that's pretty much the range, 95 cents to 70 cents for the van. Now, again, there are people that have their little niche that only do shorties and don't do that many miles. They're going to get a great rate per mile. Now, at the end of the week, they're not getting a ton of money, but if that's what they're happy with, that's what they want, and that's what they're doing. So, once again, don't get too focused on rate only. As far as the places that offer percentage, I'm not sure what the rate per mile is going to end up being. I guess it's going to depend on what type of load you take. Because, again, the shorter loads pay a better rate per mile. The shorter to somewhat medium, and if you just get them in the right place at the right time, you can get a good rate. But for the most part, if you're trying to make a large amount, as I said earlier, you're going to want to run more miles, so you're going to want to find the best rate along with the most miles. You want a good combination if you're out here to make, as much money as possible. If you're trying to put as much money as you can into the bank, you have to find that good combination. I've mentioned it before how when I first came out here, I was with a carrier that paid 80 cents. The average rate per loaded mile was more like 77 cents. But the thing was, I found other carriers that paid more per mile, but they didn't have enough miles at the end of the week from the drivers I spoke to. I never went on and tried them. I only went by talking with drivers because I didn't want to make the move. I'm just one of those extremely careful people. I don't like to just make that move and see what happens and then backpedal if I need to. So basically just talking with drivers, people that I got to know and trusted, and looking at their numbers, like they wasn't making as much money, clearing as much money at the end of the week as I was running that for as many miles as I was running. Again, not everybody wants to do that, and that's fine. Like that's cool. I don't mind doing it. I enjoy the road. I like the hustle. I like working my ass off, and that's why I've went from, each step that I've went. So don't get focused on the rates again, 100%. Of course, pay attention to them, know them, understand them, but don't get caught up in saying, oh, well, this one's offering me 97 cents. Okay, 97 cents, and you only ran 900 miles for the last 3 weeks, so now you're bitching. So be careful. All right, so next question. Says, question regarding purchasing a used tall and long van from Ryder, U-Haul, etc. Said he's heard pros and cons. He's heard that these commercial rental agencies maintain their vehicles, although I've also heard they won't tell if they were involved in an accident. So what's my take on purchasing one of them? My initial thought as far as wanting to buy something from a rental place is, yes, they maintain them as far as they repair them, they do the maintenance, but that still doesn't control who drives them. Especially vehicles nowadays. I mean, they say that the vehicles learn how the driver works, how the driver drives it, so it kind of becomes accustomed to that. With the rentals, it's all different people getting into the accelerator, braking hard, turning hard, so you don't truly know how much wear or how much damage they've truly done to it. So that's always my concern. Now, on the flip side of that, don't get me wrong, if I found one and I did as much as I could to look it over and I felt comfortable with what I seen and what I hear and feel when I'm driving it, and it's a great price, I'm probably going to try it. I'm probably going to give it a shot. That's the truth. So that's really what it comes down to as far as, do you have much mechanical knowledge? Do you have somebody that you know that has really good mechanical knowledge? You've checked it over real well. You've taken it for a good drive. All of those good things. You're familiar with the vehicle, because that's, for me, I'm not going to be as confident if I went out and tried to, say, get a used ProMaster that I've never driven as opposed to a Ford. If I got into a Ford Transit that was used at one of those places, I drove it, I felt it, I'm used to what it feels like, what it should sound like, feel like, all that good stuff. I'm going to feel more confident in making that used purchase through there as opposed to a ProMaster that I know nothing about. I can take it to somebody, have them look at it, but I still I wouldn't feel confident because I don't know. So, and that's another reason why I try and stick with one type of vehicle, is just you get to know it, you start to understand some of the nuances of them, the little minor stuff that goes wrong, the major stuff that goes wrong, all that stuff. So that's what I think about it. Like, again, it's not a bad thing. It can be a bad thing if you don't know enough to be making that purchase. That's really what it comes down to. But of course, if you can find a used vehicle that you feel confident is in good shape for a great price, yeah, why not? All right, last question. So he says, I'm looking to get a Ford Transit cargo van. Any advice on if that van is good for my first van, and what model should I get? Now, let me say this just to start off. If you have no experience, never been on the road, have no idea if you're going to like it or not, don't have an alternative use for that van, please don't go out and spend a ton of money on a big van, on a new purchase in a big van. Just don't do that, please. That could really, really mess you up financially for a long period of time. So I'm going to answer this as though you know that this is what you want to do. You've researched it. You have you have everything in place that you want to do. Now you're just trying to decide what van you want to buy. Okay, so that's how I'm going about answering this. As far as advice on this, I would definitely go newer than a 17. The 17s and older seem to have a lot of real nitpicky problems, in my opinion. Also, I go with the 3.5 turbo. I haven't driven a 3.7. The reason I've went with the 3.5 is supposed to be fuel economy, supposed to be better. The horsepower is supposed to be better. So just a common sense kind of thing. Yes, I want something that's got more horsepower and better fuel mileage if I'm out on the road, obviously. So that's why I initially went with them, and I really do like them. Again, I've never had a 3.7, so I can't really compare it to that. I can just say that I do like the 3.5, and I've had fairly good luck with them so far. Is it good for your first van? Again, I'm going about this answer as if this is what you're going to do long term. If it is, yes, I mean, the longest and tallest one of these, I do believe a Transit's a good van. And the reason for it is, one of the reasons I like the Fords is that you got a lot of places you can get them worked on. The parts are fairly accessible. I've not heard of anybody having no real issues with weight on parts. Although recently, when I had a transmission issue in my 17, there was supposedly a a long back order through Ford for the transmission, yet a transmission shop was able to get one within a couple of days. And also, we're in this pandemic bullshit, so don't really want to go on that, to say that that's the norm. Normally, find parts pretty easily, can get them pretty quickly. I can usually get into a Ford dealer fairly quickly. So I do like that the prices on these things are reasonable, as far as, it's not a diesel and it's not a Sprinter. So the cost is fairly low. What model you should get? Me, I have the longest, the extended, the 350, 3.5 EcoBoost. That's what I have. Now, one other suggestion I make, if you're buying one, don't get all the bells and whistles. Don't do that. You're just piling on money and money and money, and you're paying upwards, high 40s for a van that should cost you near the low 40s, all for a bunch of bullshit you don't really need. Like, yeah, it feels good to have a freaking decked out van with all the freaking bells and whistles. I'm sure it would feel good. I don't have it, but me personally, I like the extended heated mirrors. I needed cruise control, and I wanted a 3.5 EcoBoost. Other than that, besides being extended and tall roof, other than that, I don't have no bells and whistles. I don't have a CD player. I don't have shit. I don't have OnStar. I don't have none of that shit. I didn't need it, so why am I going to pay for it? It's not helping me make money. I can plug in my aux cord to my iPad, listen to music that way. I got my phone and whatever else I want to use for GPS. So why am I going to pay for all that shit just so I can get interest compounded onto that and pay even more for it than what I need to pay for it? So that's my opinion on as far as the accessories you get with it. But other than that, the 350, a 2018 or newer, 3.5 EcoBoost, extended, tall, there you go. That's which one I suggest. So, with all those questions answered, if you guys have any questions for me, please put it in the comments below. I am going to try and start doing these videos more and more regularly as far as answering these questions, the ones that I think that need put into a video form as opposed to just replying text-wise. So, put the question down there, and I will be sure to get to them. As I said, I will either reply to you or I'll put them in the video. I'll let you know either way. I am going to get out of here for now. Just dropped off a little bit ago, kind of heading north, moving up north slowly towards the house. See if I can get a couple of loads before I go in on the 23rd, which is just about a day and a half from now. Other than that, man, I hope everybody's being safe and making money, and you guys all be good.